All right, what is going on, crypto fam? What's going on, Generation Crypto fam? Thank you guys for tuning into another Power Hour. We got some interesting developments on the charts. Also wanted to highlight a little bit on HyperWave Theory. It's not something I usually dive into, but I've been following Tyler Jenks and Leah for a little bit of time, and I kind of want to elaborate on hyperwave. You know, it's Tyler's theory, but I'm seeing some things that I wanted to highlight, basically breaking down his phases into sub phases, just based on price action. I'm gonna wait till there's a few more of us in the chat, in the video box. You got some guys on Facebook, if you guys on YouTube. If you guys say hi, pop a like, click the like button just so I know you're there, so I know who all is watching, especially you guys on Facebook. And if you want to ask me questions for altcoins and such, or on BTC, you can do that on either chat, but priority is going to go to Discord. And if you're in Discord, it's going to be in Tales of the Cryptos, where I'm taking questions from. So I'm just going to get in and kind of dive into a little BTC price action, what I'm seeing on the chart. We did see this rally break up. We did, the Adam and Eve is still holding up. Hopefully it is bottom. As far as a play that we can play, like say on MEX, for like a leverage long or even for a long, I would wait for this falling wedge to play out, to finish out. It's going to be risky getting in between the lines, but it looks like this is holding as support, right? If you wanted to run a Fibonacci retracement on here, and there's a lot of lines on my chart, and I'll go into what those are when it's time to. Hola, Sochi. Awesome. So YouTube not working right on iPad. I would switch to PC. DGK2 Esther. Hey guys, Puerto Rico is beautiful. It really is amazing. I take the dogs out to the beach every morning and play frisbee, and in the evening as well. Weather's always nice. It's always the same weather. I mean, proper attire here is shorts and a t-shirt every day of the week, just because it's nice and good weather. Alright, back to the BTC chart. It looks like we're holding at that 50% retracement. How's on PC instead of iPad? So our 50% retracement is looking good. It's showing some support. I did say we might come down to the 61.8 on this run, which is the bottom of the top of the eve, right? There's quite a bit of support here. That's about as much as I can highlight on a one-day chart. I'm gonna go ahead and add an RSI. So on a one-day, our RSI isn't completely oversold. It's too soon to call for a divergence, but on a 4-hour, we should be looking a little better. So if you go to a 4-hour chart, and still waiting on the chart to load. Looks like it hit oversold. It's showing a failure swing, but personally, I am going to wait for the wedge to play. A few of you guys in chat were saying, hey, there's a wedge when we were down here and then back up to here. And I said, hey guys, you want to wait for more touches for more of a confirmation. Now I'm not even going to count this as a touch or that one as a touch. I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 touches is a confirmed wedge. These extra ones, they add to the validation. So at some point, I want to see the price action break out of the wedge and come back and retest the wedge, right? These wedge retests have time and time proven to be the best entry on a high leverage long, because you would be retesting that downtrend. It would be the lowest risk entry, and these result in a nice breakout. Last time we played a wedge was this massive wedge right around here. This is on a log chart. If I was to go on a linear chart, you guys would be better able to see this wedge. And I typically like wedges on a linear because it's going to give us that earlier entry than it will on logarithmic. Alright guys, so this was our last wedge that we played, and this was the retest, right? This retest gave us a really nice entry for a long, and then there was that big bearish divergence. And that's when I posted, this was like 2 Mondays ago, saying, hey guys, there's a bear div, they're probably going to come down. So we want to wait for this next wedge to play out before opening a long. And I'm not even going to open a short. I'm just going to stay out of BitMEX until we're up here. Any questions on the wedge, on the divergence that I highlighted? Or on what, you know, on BTC price action right now? This is going to be a reversal formation for an upwards break, right? And once we break out of here, we should be good to go. Awesome. Hola, Sochi. We got Jeremy, Matthew Pank. What's going on? All right. So back to what I wanted to highlight on the actual, back to 1 day. HyperWave, right? HyperWave Theory. Tyler says there are 7 phases in a HyperWave. You guys should probably check out his channel. They're called HyperWave on YouTube. They do live updates all the time. And I don't give a whole lot into HyperWave Theory, but then today, you know, we're in this downtrend, we're sideways, I'm not margin trading, so I figured, hey, I want to dive in and elaborate a little more, because just like Elliott waves and fibs, there's going to be smaller moves to be captured within the bigger waves. So what I did is I split up the major waves into subwaves, right? So like HyperWave 1 is going to have 5 subwaves, same thing with 2 and 3. And because I can only identify 2 big waves and 2 subwaves, sorry, and you know, 2 sets of subwaves, I try to apply the same type of hyperwave on phase 3, which is where I believe we are. And I was able to break down phase 1 and phase 2 into 5 subphases, and 1A is going to be a standard advance. 1B is a parabolic advance, C is a correction, D is parabolia, and then E is a second correction, and that puts us in a phase 2, right? So it's going to be our phase 1, phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 1C, 1D, 1E. And then next up is going to be phase 2, which went from $945 all the way up to 3,700. Actually, you know, the peak was up there, but it ended at 3,700. And what phase 2 did is phase 2A, which was a standard advance, kicked into 2B for a parabolic advance, 2C for a correction, 2D is parabolia, 2E is another correction, which puts us in phase 3. Phase 3, I was able to identify phase 3A, 3B, which was parabolia, 3C is that massive correction we just came out of, and upon breaking out of this wedge, if we enter a parabolic trend for 3D, it should probably be pointed more parabolic, right, would validate, you know, what I just did to HyperWave. But then again, you know, Tyler's been HyperWave trading for a long time. And he just, you know, he says he just went public with the theory, the concept. So in essence, I try to just elaborate on it and dive into, you know, various phases and sub phases, and a back test on phase 1 and phase 2 where we could find these 5 subwaves, and now we can identify 1, 2, 3, 4 subwaves in phase 3. So we'll see how phase 3D plays out. Let me know what you guys think on this. I like your input. Watchmen helped me break 3A, B, C, and D into a better understanding. So thank you for that, Watchmen. I'm sorry about that, Veritile. It will be recorded. It will be in our Power Hour channel, so you'll be able to see it. Alright guys, moving on. I'm going to cover some market dominance. Going to CoinMarketCap and checking the dominance charts. So market cap's going back down to that 378 billion. That's not too worrisome, right? The fact that we're in a falling wedge formation, as long as we don't break that falling wedge, I'm not stressed by any means. Altcoin market cap looks like it's somewhat mirroring BTC, right? They look very much mirroring. These are alts without BTC, and the above one is the entire market cap with BTC. So going sideways, consolidating, coming down. A lot of alts have been bleeding. If you survived, you guys that had Poly in your portfolios up until I put out the exit signal for Poly, throughout that downtrend, Poly 2x'd on us. So that was really good to see. Poly play out into, you know, 150% gain throughout a market downtrend, right? Portfolios that had a big position on Poly hedged really well for this downtrend. Moving into market dominance, this is what really interests me the most right now. Because we were up at an all-time high for an altcoin dominance of 27%. We are back down to a 24%. This 24.8% used to be the resistance for alts, right? If this can turn into support for alts, that's going to be interesting, right? Because if phase 3D was a parabolic advance, typically within a parabolic advance, alts are going to suffer. Unless they're getting bought out as fast as BTC is. And this is why earlier I was saying, you know, the dynamics are shifting last month towards something we've never seen before, which is that all-time high of altcoin dominance. Esther, I started analyzing 2016, 2017 because that's when the parabolia started. I'm using MEX, right? I'm using BitMEX, and this goes back to 2016. I could go back. Let's look at like a BTC USD. I was doing it on MEX because MEX has the highest leverage, so it's gonna show us the reflexivity of the market and such. So go into Finex, BTC USD, and here we do see more phases. So I'll do another update on what I posted as far as HyperWave goes, and I'll do it on the Bitfinex chart. I'll do that for you guys in chat on Discord. Anyways, moving back to altcoin dominance. Ether looks like to be headed upwards. Ether has been performing fairly well as a hedge. Typically when Ether rallies, we want to see alts rally afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and kind of shift back in time and see what happens post Ether rally. So we see Ether decline. What's going on? So Ether typically does lead an altcoin rally. So as Ether rallies, alts follow. Here we saw somewhat of the opposite, but Ether is catching up with alts as far as dominance goes. A couple of days ago, I noticed that the Bitcoin unconfirmed transactions were actually moving up, and some guys wanted to short Ether, and I said, hey guys, do not short Ether because we're going to see more transactional volume happen on ETH. It's going to be an interesting point whenever alts and ETH do cross that dominance. I want to see what happens there as well. Whether they're both going to rally side by side, or if BTC is going to take this show out again. But you know, as far as what's happening now, we're still in this consolidation phase. We still have that falling wedge playing out, and up until we break out of this wedge, upwards or downwards, I am sidelining longs and shorts. You guys have any questions on BTC, altcoin dominance, and so forth? All right, no questions. Let's move into some altcoins. I'm gonna take 3 suggestions, and once I cover those 3, I'll take 3 more, just so we don't get lost and convoluted in the chat. You guys want to throw some altcoins at me? Power. Power's making gains last night. It had a decent run. And it's coming back down. So on a 1-day chart, hindsight, we did see some bearish divergence on a 1-day, right, where power made these lower RSI highs on higher price highs, which is typically not a good thing, right? We're going to see these retracements happen afterwards. It did, however, moving averages wise, hold up in this nice territory where the short-term moving average didn't break below our longer-term moving average. Typically that's proven to be good for a bounce and for further continuation. Fundamentally, I know, you know, in Puerto Rico, power is really getting into the grid, right? Trying to implement some renewable energy solutions and such. So there's quite a bit of FA that's happening on power that's not really talked about. This evening I will be at a crypto happy hour, and I'll be able to get some more information on what's going on with power in Puerto Rico. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. If you guys are looking at add power or, you know, profit take, I would wait and see what happens a little further. It is coming back down. If you were to just fib that very last move, it's not at that 50 yet, right? I would expect it to hold above this blue moving average, above that 50%, and then further continuation. One thing we've been seeing a lot, especially recently with that BTC dip, we saw a lot of these tokens take a downtrend towards a capitulation point before another rally. Now back to the BTC chart, if that falling wedge plays out for another breakout like we saw at 6,700, we're gonna see altcoins rally following it, so long as that parabolic advance isn't too aggressive. Alright guys, I said 3, there's already 5, so please wait until I ask for more. I'm going to cover NEO. I like covering NEO on a 1-day chart. One thing we do know about NEO is that it reacts fairly well to Bollinger Bands, and we do see friction with the bottom of the band, so I expect NEO to start making a leg up. If not, then a tight stop implemented now would be much better than waiting for NEO to essentially go into further of a downtrend. Now we did see quite a lot of tokens are they're still being reactive to what BTC is doing. As far as a chart formation, there could be a wedge shaping up, but it's a little too soon to tell. But yeah, typically NEO likes to come down and touch these bottom of the bands and then rebound back up. So as far as like a Bollinger Band goes, it looks like we should see in some type of rally back upwards at some point. Go into a 4-hour, check for divergences. We do see NEO get pretty severely oversold. Down at where we at 69k satoshis or 71 range. Now we're back in that same price level, not as oversold, right? So this could be the beginning of a failure swing. Time will tell. This coin is mirroring somewhat what NEO is looking like. But since fundamentally there's master nodes at play, it did pull back quite a bit. Going on a 1-day chart. And it looks like it's still headed down. RSI isn't quite fully oversold yet. I mean, we're in a downtrend. A lot of these charts have been mirroring BTC since the divergence on BTC. As for SIS itself, did it have a bear div? It looks like it did, but it's not a very strong bear div. And if you go based on the wicks, you had a high, and then these highs are very similar. Go to 4-hour. One thing we're really seeing, and I'll highlight some charts that are actually doing that, is tokens. There's a divergence. It's more visible on a 4-hour chart. a lot of tokens are entering somewhat of a capitulation zone before the upwards rally. The one that was leading that type of behavior was Lumens. And I posted on Lumen before it entered the capitulation zone, and now it looks like it's coming back down, right? So what Lumens did is it came down into a capitulation zone for a rebound back up after this downwards river of a slope. Actually, it's called a creek. So we saw a creek, a downwards dip into capitulation for another upwards rally. Now, Lumens is looking suspect for a longer term bear trend if it was to complete a head and shoulders. Let's go ahead and highlight that. So assuming this dip continues at 3400 range, then Lumens is likely to break back down to these previous lows. You know, with no FA or any kind of catalyst, as long as it doesn't come back down to retest this neckline, we should be good on Lumens. Divergence as well. Saw a lot of divergent alts on this last run up, right? Where you're seeing these higher highs on the chart without a higher high on RSI and then entering a sell-off. So if you guys see your chart making a new high, don't get too excited. Start profit taking and secure those gains, especially if your RSI divergent. Right, ZRX. I preached profit take a few times on ZRX, right? And I believe where did I preach profit take? I'm going to Binance chart. I preached it at the 18K range, and then the next 2 days said, hey guys, it's time to scale out of here. And this is why, right? We saw, as I was talking about divergences, this is one of the ones we caught at the top or more towards the top. That's why it's important to actually wait around, you know, wait a day or two. Here we'll start here, and then we don't see any newer highs on RSI. You don't see any new high on RSI, so I scaled that completely out of ZRX. It's looking somewhat oversold. I want to wait for an actual divergence before coming back in, because as we know, right, we can go oversold for quite some time. I want to see divergence play out probably on a 1 day before actually coming in, or at least friction with the bottom of the band. We haven't even gotten close here to the bottom of the band. As for a retracement play, I would like to see ZRX hold a 50% retracement. Somewhere around, yeah, that 50% for a bounce play, possibly, right? If we see a bounce off that 50, it could be a good indication of a bullish continuation. As for the previous run, did we see a 50? Well, we saw a dip below the 61.8, but that was during the bear market, so that's going to have some kind of effect on the chart. And there's more confirmation of that bearish growth. Next up, looking at waves. So that's right, I signaled waves a few days ago, and it's still holding up above the level that we did. We don't see bearish divergence on the 1 day, right? We see a higher high on RSI, and we see a higher high on the chart. This uptrend is healthy. As for the pullback, go to Bittrex. We go from last swing low to last swing high. We do see this massive rejection above the 50%, which lets us know that this thing is bullish, right? We see wicks up above that 50. We see a lot of good rejection here, so I expect further continuation from waves. I'm gonna hold this one probably through the end of the quarter or until we see a bearish divergence. RSI is finding good support, and it's been quite some time since waves has rallied. And not only that, but once it enters a bullish type of cycle, we can see an extended run. So long as there is no bear dip, right? So here we did enter a downtrend on no bearish divergence. So we just want to keep an eye out on divergences on a smaller time frame, maybe a 4 hour, before pulling an exit on waves. Cash. Chart is loading, so I can only wait it out. So for the guys that are subscribers, right, we had signaled Encash some time ago for the pennant break, and we did break that pennant. We hit target 1 and target 2, I believe. I'm not holding any Encash right now, but as far as the chart shows on a 1-day, we don't see a bear dip, right? We see this RSI high, price high, and then not a higher high. Let's go to a 4 hour. And some of the Binance coins are tricky because they will get a volume surge out of nowhere. So long as there's another divergence around the corner, I would gladly re-enter Encash. You know, bullish divergence. And I guess this was the first bear div. Right? Here we see similar highs, just not in the extremes. This is where the big profit taking happened. So currently I would stay away from anything that's in a downtrend that hasn't had a bullish divergence. Dude, Matthew Pink, I'm gonna get your tokens next. Guys, so long-term wise, QDM last swing low to last swing high. It's still above that 61.8 retracement. I would put a stop on QDM around that 61.8. The second retest should be a more promising one. Right, it looks like it's wicking off right now. We do know that they presented a consensus Charlie Lee was wearing a Qtum shirt while presenting. Our boots on the ground said good things about Qtum. We're seeing similar lows. RSI isn't in the oversold extreme again. Let's go to a 4 hour. Definitely wanting to hold above this 61. It's on a long-term retracement. Once again, you know, it did something similar to Lumens where it did reach that capitulation for a bounce up. I'm still holding Qtum personally. I do think that there should be a significant leg upwards from here. We do know that Qtum is subject to price suppression. I was around for this Qtum downtrend, right? And then Blender, one of our analysts, signaled Qtum down here for this run up. And then we got out of Qtum and picked it back up at some of the lows. So I'm still holding Qtum up until, you know, I get a break below that 61.8, maybe a daily close below it, and then that would be a different story. Covering Ven for Matthew Pink. Chart looks good, but we see an RSI bearish div, right? So this should probably prompt considering profit taking. Just like what I was talking about earlier, whenever we start catching these divergences on smaller time frames, it's probably time to start securing some of those gains and shipping that money back into BTC. Right, so we see a higher high, and then not even an entry into the extreme on RSI, and so I would expect Ven to probably dip back down a little, though it could withstand divergences really well. Here we see another divergence. Funky divergence on the chart. I would consider starting a profit take, maybe scale out. Don't jump out all at once. Not an exit signal, it's a profit take signal. And yeah, the divergence is more prominent on a 1 day. Now we might see like one more upwards break. If this thing makes a new high, profit takes some more. So just pull out little by little. Checking in on ADA. ADA, divergent, right? See a double top on RSI and a higher high on the actual chart. Prompts for a profit take. ADA breaks down, holds at that the 50-day moving average. Fib levels, it's fibbing pretty well, currently holding at the 50. So we should see a bounce here. If not, we don't see a bounce at the 25 or the 61.8, which is 2600 satoshis, then we're in trouble. Right, this is looking like a nice place to possibly add. I would wait and see what happens. I would set some alerts above this daily candle, then below this daily candle, see what it does on a day-to-day basis. Go on a 4 hour, check for a bull div, and we don't quite see one, not yet, right? Not yet, but we're seeing a lower low, or a similar low on a higher RSI. So let's see if we get an exaggerated bullish divergence. That would make ADA a good entry, right? RSI still not in the extreme. Yeah, and you know one thing we even saw Matt, and talking to you, we even saw BTC show that bearish divergence on a 1 day chart, and I highlighted that right the day it happened. So let me go to BTC USD. And Bitcoin tends to lead the market. We do know that like Circle is they just issued, or they're gonna issue a USD token and bring in some traded pairs on a BTC traded pair, some altcoins traded on a USD value traded pair, which is gonna separate a lot of those altcoins in value from what Bitcoin is actually doing. And actually, I wrote about that in the report on 4/7. I said we're gonna see this year, this shift in the market where we see more USD traded pairs as opposed to strictly BTC and ETH, and that's going to cause some separation. Back to what we were talking about on that bearish divergence on RSI, you said we're seeing that in the market. Well, we're seeing it in the market because we see it on BTC, right? Everything's trading based on a BTC value, or most of the volume's coming in based on a BTC value. And essentially this is what caused it. And a lot of the coins that we're seeing that are in a downtrend, they're just mirroring BTC with a strong positive correlation. I know of a lot that just monitors breakout volume changes that will alert us. So King Price, this isn't a question for Power Hour, but we do have a volume monitor, and our subscribers have access to it. You can probably ask the guys in Discord how they like our volume monitor and how they use it. As a matter of fact, I can pull it up. Alright guys, Facebook, YouTube, Discord, you guys have any more alts you want me to look at? Matthew Ping, to answer your questions about some of my favorite alts right now, I'm back in Wax. I'm back in Wax. And I'm gonna hold this through probably end of June. We saw something really exciting, and I'm glad it happened while I was sleeping. What we saw was a probe. This massive wick, I call it a probe. What that does is it takes out all the stop losses for an upwards rally. And you know, that's somewhat theoretical, that's what this wick is, but I'm back into Wax. I do not believe Wax is done for the quarter. And you know me, I don't just hodl coins. I like to momentum trade. If we look at RSI, we don't see a bearish div. RSI isn't quite in the extremes. We did see one up here for the profit take, and now we're back in this range. I'm gonna hold this thing through probably end of June, just because the FA looks so clean on this one. Awesome, man. Another project I'm long on is NEM. Right, this is another one that I'm long on. Chart doesn't look the most appealing right now. Let's go to 1-day chart. We did see somewhat of a bear dev, but then I believe NEM can, as far as support goes, I don't want to see it dip below 32, 35. Then I would probably start capitulating. But project wise, partners wise, based on their boothing consensus, I like what's going on with NEM. As far as the chart, this major downtrend happened due to the hack, right? And then that's been fixed, so it's only a matter of time before we see an upwards rally. One thing we know about like the Asian market is these guys have a lot of patience. And same thing, like whenever we were signaling Mona when you were with us last time around, it took a long time for it to rally like we thought it was going to, but it actually did. Sochi, I just covered, sis. I'm gonna do EOS. I don't see a bearish div on the 1-day on EOS. It keeps making these higher highs. I would load up next time it enters and oversold on a 1-day and just hold. Right, and when it enters the zone on a 1-day chart, I would start looking to accumulate because the chart still looks healthy, right? We saw this major upswing, pulled back, and now it's making us another rally, pulling back without a divergence, so it's good. This is just standard profit taking. Realistically, what's a good buy-in? Where should you put your alert so you don't check it every day? Well, we're at a 50% retracement. We could see what happens at the 50. We could see what happens at the 61.8. And then, we want to see what BTC does too. So if BTC breaks upwards from that wedge, and if we see EOS do the same thing, follow suit, right? Or divert path, because when BTC breaks out, tokens do two things. One, they either follow it. Two, they get pushed down to a discount. So I would want to see what is going to happen with BTC before going all shopping again. So Mona on a 1-day did something surprising. I was not expecting Mona to dip back down into this previous range. We go into a 3-day chart. Get rid of these Bollinger Bands. I would give Mona about another week or two. I want to see what happens with these MAs converging together like that. Right? I want to see what happens in the next week or two because things can get pretty volatile again. We do see the short term above the midterm, which is good, right? And we could essentially at that point have another wicked upswing. Markets are for the patient. Sometimes we get the breakouts right away. Sometimes we get the breakouts right away. Other times we're running a little early. Alright guys, any more altcoin requests? You guys on Facebook, YouTube, Discord? You are very welcome, Esther. You guys are all very welcome. Thanks for tuning into this Power Hour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and do what Esther requested I do. Is I'm going to go ahead and apply the phase one, I guess the hyperwave phases on BTC prior to 2016. Use a Bitfinex chart instead of an XBT chart. The reason I did that on XBT is because after listening to those lectures by Soros, with the high leverage and reflexivity, I wanted to measure it on a 100x leverage type of parameters. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do that again and go back to like 2015, 2014 at that bear market and stretch it out and see how many phases I can identify. There we go. WTC, one last coin for Vasily. Things just going sideways. Try a different strategy on here. It looks like it's approaching, with red Kumo cloud, TK cross before the cloud, which has back tested. How does it back test on here? I think it's a good hold right now, right? A good stop on WTC. With, I don't know, when you got in. I would put a stop at some of these lows, just in case if it takes a bad turn, you're not bag holding forever, or indefinitely. On a 2-hour chart, we're getting that friction with the cloud, so we could get into somewhat of a breakout. The cloud really thins out here in the next couple of days, so yeah, keep a close eye on it. If it does break through the cloud on the 2-hour, then we'd have the cloud the 19th. It's rather thin and there's a little bit of a Kumo twist, so this was a potential breakout zone right here and it got rejected right before, so I would hang on just a bit longer. Oh, that's BNB, I'm sorry. Let's look at the same on BTC. Volume is really low per Binance standards, 383 BTC, but we do know that whenever it starts cruising through the cloud like that, it's likely to get into a breakout. Here we see the first break out of the cloud fail, right? We saw friction, first break fail, the third break, it was able to sustain a rally after another depth. So if you're not hodling, this looks like a good hodl because we got one break, it was sustainable, it failed, now we could be ready for another big rally. Things looking good as far as fractals go on a cloud. I like it. I went from neutral to actually liking it. Let me see what happens with my moving averages on a 1 day. Yeah, I think it's looking good. Oh. Anyways, guys, thank you all for tuning into another Power Hour. If you guys, stay tuned in the chat. I'll go ahead and post in Saber Notes my updated hyperwave subwaves analysis. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. You bet, Esther. You guys have a good day.